Well, a very good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Blue Sunday here on In the Blue Corner channel. This is Vince Loccisano with you for another, well, I was going to say another Sunday night, but it's not another Sunday night. In fact, it's a Monday night, and I'm joined as usual by my partner in crime, Steve Khatib. I keep saying that you're a partner in crime every week, Steve, but I'm not sure what we're doing that's criminal, other than taking up the airwaves. But good to see you, mate. We've decided to make this week a Monday night in lieu of it's a long weekend here in Victoria, and maybe one of us had some other things that made us unavailable last night. But anyway, it's good to see you, and another big week in sport, and an even bigger week coming up, certainly in the world of AFL. Our first round of matches is but a couple of days away.
That's right. Wednesday.
48 hours until the doggies in Melbourne get the season underway for a change.
For a change, what do you think that is?
Well, it's a grand final replay.
Is that the only reason?
And maybe a few people are sick and tired of seeing Carlton and Richmond play the first game every year and pretty much seeing the same result for the last 10 years in a row. Hopefully this will mean that there's a different result this year.
I agree completely with that. I think the Carlton-Richmond, albeit two big clubs in a traditional rivalry, has been a fizzer. Let's be honest. It has been for the last 10 years.
They've still had some good clashes. It hasn't all been, it's not like they've been thrashed every time, but it's just been, unfortunately, a Richmond victory every time. But there've been some competitive games amongst all of those.
Yeah, you could.
Like we've been in the game for at least three quarters for the last couple.
Yeah, no, correct. Yeah, that's right. However, you'd think if the same teams played 10 times, even a poor side that was playing against them might win 2 times out of that 10.
Alas, it hasn't turned out that way. Let's hope that it's going to be different this year. We always keep hoping and praying and latching onto any possible reason to believe it's going to be different. This year, the pre-season form looks very, very promising, and a lot of people are latching onto that and saying it's going to be different this year. What do you think?
Pre-season form sets 2 matches. So Carlton beat St Kilda by a kick. I mean, let's be honest. It was at Princes Park. It was at 10 a.m. in the morning. I think you really can't take any notice of that game at all. Okay, although you were there. Let's just park that to the side. The Melbourne game, which was at Docklands, and Carlton didn't have all their players in. I would suggest that victory. You can definitely take something from that. So I would say one game in pre-season is relevant, but the first one I wouldn't get too excited on.
Well, I was quite impressed with the performance they put up against Melbourne, and if that's the sort of pressure that we're going to bring to the table in the real stuff, well, then I think we've got an improved season ahead. Whether it's going to be improved enough to make the finals or not, time will tell. I think we actually can make finals. But, geez, we'd have to have a lot of things going our way, especially on the injury front. So we're going to have to go in against Richmond without our best player, Sam Walsh, and that's not going to be easy to cover. But it looks like we've got some personnel in there now that can at least make up for, I guess, some of what Sam Walsh would normally bring.
Absolutely. I think there's more depth in the midfield. It's still not deep enough, but I definitely believe that there's more depth there. From a goal-kicking perspective, I think we've got some more goal-kicking options. Probably Harry Mackay's a little underdone for that game, I would suggest. But still, possibly,
well, he's another one that didn't play against Melbourne, but he did play against St Kilda, and he moved around very well. So I think, both of those boys need to start putting it all together on the field when it really matters.
Absolutely.
So tonight's show, we're going to be going over some of our predictions for the year. We might finish off with a bit of fun doing that at the end of the show. And we'll update you on the fifth major at Pontevedra Beach there in Florida, where Cam Smith is right in the firing line to win a very significant tournament. With any luck, he might just have enough ammunition, if you like, in his golf bag to make it happen. With any luck, anyway.
That's right, absolutely. We've got a comment here, Vince.
Linton McKenzie, what a great man he is too, and a great Carltonian. G'day, Linton. Nice to see you joining our show. What's this? Thanks to Jared Waitley. Incessant complaining about us opening the season is why there is a Wednesday game. Irrespective of the results or where the Blues finish, we are still the most viewer-supported club. Not to mention before COVID, always a massive crowd at the opener. Well, that's true. We've always been able to attract a massive crowd. And I think, to give Richmond credit, they're part of the reason for that as well, because they've got a huge fan base. But the two clubs together, it's a good formula for having a very good crowd at an opening round match. Not sure about Jared Waitley's incessant complaining. I think the whole concept of having a grand final replay is coming back, and I think a lot of people are just saying, "Hey, wouldn't it be great to have a grand final replay as our first and opening match every year?" And I agree with that. I think that's
I'm going to play
good concept.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for you, Vince.
Righto.
They want a grand final rematch, but if Melbourne and the Bulldogs is played at 2:10 on a Saturday afternoon, or a Sunday afternoon for that matter, or even a Saturday or a Sunday night, you're not going to get the same crowd. You're not going to get the same spotlight.
As a Carlton Richmond game? No.
No,
well,
as they would normally get. So the AFL is so desperate for crowds now, which understandably so. They've put this game as a marquee game because let's be honest, Melbourne and the Bulldogs, they've got, I would say, strong fan bases, but they're not traditionally, they don't turn out in their numbers, do they? So make it the first game of the season, get more prime time ratings, more sponsorship, more a certain type of sponsorship they like as well, sponsorship that potentially encourages wagering, maybe. See the betting turnover. Absolutely go through the roof on that game, and maximise what you can. Again, this is a fixture. It's not a draw. It's a fixture. It's all about manipulating the fixture to get the best crowd, TV ratings. And now wagering.
Well, this brings us really to our first topic of the night, which is the AFL's, I guess, obsession with crowd numbers and making sure that they maximise the potential total numbers of people over the first round. Now, I think they're aiming at 400,000?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. So they'll need 80,000 on Wednesday and Thursday night, respectively, won't they?
Yeah, I don't think they'll get 80,000 to the Melbourne Bulldogs game. I really don't. I think they'll struggle to get more than about 60, 65. I could be wrong. Maybe all the Melbourne people will come out in their droves or their Range Rovers. And, maybe they will all turn up to watch the flag being unfurled, which would be a good thing. First time in 57 years. However, I don't know that the crowd will exceed about 60, 65. I'd love to be wrong. I think a lot of it will depend on the MCC members and how many of them show up for it too.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what do you think of the AFL's push for this 400,000 and how they're going about it? Have you got any views on this?
Well, they're trying to encourage general admission members now people to get a general admission ticket to have a cheaper price on their ticket. So normally if you have to book via the online ticket platforms, it costs you an arm and a leg opposed to just turning up on the day. There's set bays that are, remember the days at the MCG where, the Southern Stand and you'd have those green wooden seats and you could just turn up and just sit anywhere.
Yep.
Now it's this aisle, this bay is for
General
such and
admission.
such, and it's
This one's for
$55
AFL
and it's,
members.
yeah.
Yep.
Even if the bay's empty, you may have to go up to level 4 or something just to. So
Crazy, isn't it?
now they're saying, well, we're going to have more general admission available and a freeze, a cap on that to encourage people to walk up or to go. Why now? Why not just do it all the time?
I agree.
I mean, Vince, I've seen people that don't normally go to the footy. So forget me, forget you and I. We're tragics, right?
Yep.
You know, you buy your $600, $700, $800.
A lot of people would describe me as tragic.
Yeah. You budget for your $600 or $700, whatever $500 membership, whatever type of membership it is, right? People budget for that, and that's just like, it's like you pay your car insurance reluctantly every year, sort of thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
very reluctantly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got a family, dad and mum and 2 kids, and take their kids to the football, and they work out at $60 or $70. Then it's the chips, the hot dogs, the pies, the this, the that, the whole thing.
There goes
right?
another 50 at least. Yeah,
absolutely.
If not 100.
So when you think about it, people have been almost put off now in going. I might as well just stay home and watch it on TV. It's easier. And that's been the attendances have dropped as a result. People
so they're trying to make it more accessible and cheaper as well, by the looks of it.
Yeah, and then they're saying, who's that chef from Guy Grossi? So Guy Grossi is now, he's making
good Carlton man, Guy Grossi from Grossi Florentino in Burke Street.
That's right.
Just to give him a quick plug, as if he needs it.
I don't think I don't think he needs it, but anyway, it's unsolicited plug there. He's now going to be the official chef or caterer. He put his signature to all the food at the MCG. I mean, really? I mean, that's nice. But well, what do you really need? I mean,
funnily enough, Carlton Football Club have used a variety of different chefs in recent years as sort of, celebrity chefs to prepare meals for example, the president's function. Or there was even one doing the Carltonians for a while there. So, yeah, this whole concept might have even been started by us, by Carlton, and now the AFL's looked at it and thought, let's use this concept to upgrade the catering at the MCG.
So Guy Grossi isn't cooking the pie.
No,
right?
Of course not.
Or the lasagna.
He's just approving it.
He's just putting his stamp, his signature on it, right?
Yeah.
But look, that's nice. But at the end of the day, that's not going to get more people to go to the football. The basic issues, like scoreboards at Docklands that are sexy scoreboards, whatever Gil McLaughlin referred to them as.
Oh, dear, don't.
That's not going to get people to go to the football either.
Excuse me.
Turn the music off all the time so people can have a conversation. Play the reserves before the game. I know this is like I'm sounding like I'm old and long in the tooth now.
I agree with you. No. I was just going to say, if you want to get a lot of people back at the footy, one of the best ways I reckon you could do it is to put on the curtain raiser. I mean, what's wrong with playing VFL matches before the main event?
And agreed. And rather than having these competitions where some of the weirdest, stupidest competitions that they come up with, have a quiz on, that makes members of the club think about who wore number 11 in the 1986 grand final or something like that, right? But these sorts of things, and then bring the tradition back to the football a little bit more. It's just they have lost the plot. They're looking at the wrong elements. the tradition of the history of the game is their asset. And what are they doing? They're rebranding it. Now, I'm sure they've got their marketing people that think that all the young kids, this is what they want. But I can assure you, football has to be a unique experience.
I
think the mark. Anyway, are they going to get the crowd? Are they going to get the crowd? Well, I don't think they will. It's ambitious. Yeah.
The fact that they're putting it out there, does that make people want to go? I wouldn't have thought so. Just because they're saying we want to get 400,000 people to the footy, does that make people want to go any more than they normally would? I wouldn't have thought so. It's got nothing to do with it.
I think people have actually got used to, through the COVID lockdowns of the last 2 years, have actually got used to not going as well and thought, you know what?
It's not so bad. I'll sit at home and watch it.
Or I'll watch the replay and listen to it on the radio and have a life. Do something else.
The game day experience has to be more than just siren to siren, doesn't it? It's got to be more than just, when the balls bounce for the senior game and then when the final siren goes. There's got to be a more encompassing experience than that.
I don't want to take this conversation down the wrong way, Vince, because you could start me off. You've just pressed a button there. Maybe this is for another time. The Carlton Social Club is less than impressive at the moment, and what it's offering. The interviews have been poor. The interviewers have not known anything about the club at all.
Don't get me started.
Plastic. It is plastic, and that's being generous when I say it's plastic. They've interviewed. I remember being at Carlton, Brisbane, and Brodie Kemp got interviewed, and he hadn't debuted. And the interviewer said, "What's it like running out there onto the ground wearing the navy blue, right?" And,
you reckon the interviewer would have known a little bit about the person he was interviewing, don't you?
Well, if you're a renter MC, just come in a mercenary. You just come in. You're not a Carlton person, right? We know the people that are the ground announcers. We know that what's her name's actually Collingwood, the one that worked for Channel 7. I forget her name. Yes, we know she's Collingwood, right?
No, she's converted to Carlton now.
Oh, converted, has she?
I had something to do with that.
Okay. Originally was Collingwood, right? Anyway.
Originally was Collingwood, but let me tell you, all Carlton now.
You sure? Okay. Anyway.
I'm positive.
Peter Lazar, who's the other one.
Peter Lazar.
He's at Essendon.
Yeah.
So he's got to smile and put his best Carlton. Now, he does a good job at conning people to think he's a Carlton supporter if you didn't know, right?
Sure.
But can't we get an MC that's
a Carlton supporter? People?
Sure.
But someone that knows their club, someone that knows their history, someone that knows whether Brodie Kemp's played a game yet or not, someone who knows,
That's not a lot of history, but yeah.
Well, do you know what I'm saying? Be in tune with the club. Even if you are going to be an MC that's not necessarily a Carlton, but you need to do your research.
Sure.
But unfortunately, the people that put these things together, whether it be the social club or any other room, half the time they've got people that are just reading pre-prepared questions. The people they're interviewing know exactly what the questions are that are going to be asked of them, so they've had time to prepare an answer for them. I mean, it's been happening through the club for years. And you're right, it's so plastic, it's so clinical, it's so sterile, it's so politically correct, and it's so transparently false.
Yes. So I would rather meet
right through it. They don't see.
I'd rather meet half a dozen of my mates at the pub. 2 hours before, around the corner from the ground, and then go in at, if it's a 2:10 game, get in there at 1:55, scan in, and go to the game.
Correct.
That's more
interesting. A lot of money.
Sure. So you're talking about siren to siren and all of that. Absolutely. Now, we've got this great history. We're very fortunate. We've got this great history of this club, but it's not being
No.
Nowhere near as it being utilised. But yeah, so if you're talking about match day experience, the term the marketers love to use, they've got, I think, the AFL a long way off still.
Yep. Yeah, so I wonder how many other AFL clubs experience the same sort of, how many of them experience the same sort of thing as what we have in recent years with all of the their own social clubs are going down that direction. I just wonder, is it happening like that at Essendon or Collingwood or Richmond or Melbourne or Hawthorn or whoever?
The Carlton Social Club used to, up until, when was it, 2005, it was a separate entity in its own from the football club.
Yeah.
The football club swallowed it up.
When we left the then Optus Oval.
Yep. And the cricket club and the social club. Yeah, the cricket club and the social club were together. So essentially the social club could have been run more like it's supposed to, as a social club. So even if the venue was at the MCG for a home game or somewhere else, it's still a social club with people that know the club.
Of course. By the way, everyone, as you're watching this, if you're thinking, geez, I'd love to ask these guys a question, or I'd love to express my opinion, as Linton McKenzie just did a few minutes ago, please go straight to our Facebook page, In the Blue Corner group, and you'll be able to put your question down there. Or if you like, on YouTube, as you're watching us live right now, put forward your comments or questions on the YouTube channel. Again, In the Blue Corner. And, of course, our show, Blue Sunday, which this week is Blue Monday. We should have had the theme song from New Order playing at the start of the show there, Steve. Blue Monday, it's a pretty famous song. It was pretty popular at the discos when I was a teenager. How about you?
Just on the back of just sort of getting my
You're not as old
ability.
as me.
I was getting,
You're about a decade younger, even though I look a lot younger than you do. I don't know about that. So anyway, we look forward to your comments and questions. So you don't think that the AFL will achieve its aim of getting the crowds back? Do you think the game's in trouble from that point of view?
No, I don't think it's in trouble from that. Oh, sorry. Well, I believe the business model will be more around, it'll be around sponsorship and the TV rights. Because if you're not watching it at the ground, you're going to be watching it on TV.
One thing that surely COVID has taught the AFL is the value of the crowd. I mean, when we had matches with no crowd, it was terrible to watch. And, you know, the whole fake crowd noise thing in the background when there was a goal kicked.
Yeah.
You know, and you're seeing the ball go through and there's just empty seats behind the goals. And, you know, they put on the fake crowd noise. I mean, you know, it was better than having no noise at all, I suppose. But, you just watched it and you knew it was all false. So, imagine what it would have been like for the players playing the game.
Yeah, look, you're right. Crowds are important, and you'll always, as long as they can attend, you'll always have crowds going to the games. But I think when the AFL talk about crowds, it's about porridge rights, catering, that sort of thing. Stadium deals, essentially.
But do you think some of the deals they've done with for example, caterers? I mean, they're charging a fortune for food and beverage, and people are just, even just to go to a coterie function, okay? So you're talking about going into a Carltonians or something like that for a match day. You're talking about $350 to $400 per person.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not cheap. Now, I know it's a good experience, and you get a reserved seat and all that, and you've got, your so-called entertainment before the game, and you get to sit down meal and waiter service, and you got to pay for all that. But tell you what, it's not in a lot of people's budgets to be able to do that. And I think a lot of these rooms, I've noticed in recent years, are sitting vacant. There's a lot of rooms that used to be occupied by coterie groups at clubs that are now not being occupied by coterie groups. They're
Clubs-
starting to thin right out. They're starting to thin right out at nearly every club.
Clubs are amalgamating their coteries now.
There they are. Because they're actually reducing in size.
Even if you go to the Carlton Social Club and you don't want a coterie experience, but you just want a meal and a beer or something like that. So the beer's $13, okay?
Yeah.
And the meal is $25. And you've got your own reserved seat, and you've got to queue up and do all the rest of it. And if you get there early enough,
cafeteria style thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and you get up. If you get there early enough, you'll get a table.
You got to walk up there with your plate and go and put your own,
Well, kind of. Oh, they may bring it out. I'm not sure, but it's not. You'd have to get there early enough. Now, surely they would think, let's get more tables. Let's create these rooms. Let's use these rooms for members more. Let's have. I'm not saying it's about discounting the food, but it doesn't need to be a $400 situation. The members can see value for a home game of being able to dine and prior.
Yeah.
And then guess what? They engage with their fellow members.
True.
Those people that, have known each other for years, that used to, from generation to generation, as we all know, right? That occurs. People see value.
Yeah.
They'll might enter raffles and those sorts of things because they see the value in it. But this clinical style that they're running now, however, these decisions are made by people that probably have, it's a job to them. They're probably not really connected to the football club and don't really understand. But I'm telling you this, you know all this too well, Vince.
That's for sure. Well, all I see in more recent years is the price of everything's going up. Even, when I talk about the Carltonians and other coterie groups similar to them at other clubs, the price is going up all the time, and the list of benefits is being chipped away at all the time. So you're getting less and less and paying more and more for it. And I think it's going to get to a tipping point where a lot of these groups are going to either lose members left, right, and centre, where they'll have to amalgamate with other groups, or they'll just simply, dissipate and go away. And as I said, there's a lot of rooms I notice at games of football that used to be occupied by little coterie groups and little, various other types of groups, and they're just not being used, and they're sitting there vacant. They're sitting there completely empty, these rooms.
So if you look at Carlton as an example, the Carltonians was there. Now, prior to that, the coterie prior to that, the Blues coterie.
Well, the other one was called the Blues coterie. It used to be called years ago the Blue Ensigns.
Blue Ensigns, that's correct. So the Blue, So when did they disband?
Well, probably about I'd say getting close to 10 years ago, not quite 10 years ago, maybe 8 or 9. I think you'll find that the Blues coterie was swallowed up by the Carltonians because they just didn't have enough members to justify having their own room. And so in the end, it was decided that you either join the Carltonians or if you don't want to do that, you'll join the president's room, go and buy tickets in the president's function, or go off and do whatever else you like.
And the Spirit of Carlton used to run match day events as well. And
I've been to a number. They do that anymore, do they?
No. That was.
There's another thing gone for the past players. Yep.
Yeah. So they used to run that, and you could be a member of the Spirit of Carlton if you had not played, but you could pay, or play or be involved. You pay your way there, and they were, here's the thing.
They would have been great functions to be part of.
Yes. They were so good, right, that why would you go to the president's lunch and listen to some corporate gobbledygook, right, propaganda amongst a bunch of people that probably, let's be honest, are there because they're there for their corporate interests, right? You could go to the Spirit of Carlton's function for probably a third of the price, and
rub shoulders with all the best past players in the history of the club.
Absolutely, and you can feel you walk in the room, and not everyone's a past player there. There's all sorts of different people, but you just feel the belonging.
The atmosphere.
The belonging. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely right. Now, guess what? So club are threatened by that because it's probably too popular or they couldn't control it.
And it wasn't making enough money or making any money, so they kill it.
Well, that is a fixed cost to have the past players to have a room. That is non-negotiable. If you can't respect your past players and give them a room at games.
What sort of football club are you?
Well, these rooms weren't on level 2 on the wing. They were in the forward pocket somewhere and wherever, right? So they're not. Yeah, no. That's okay. It's accepted.
They're not right next door to Channel 7's cameras who are taking the video of the game.
No, but that's okay. That's all right.
They're quite happy with their little room.
It was fantastic to go to some of those, and they did a great job. And that was part of their fundraising activities as well.
Well, now it's like the only thing that the so-called Spirit of Carlton has got going now is a once-a-year function, and they charge maybe $170 to $200 a head for people to go to it. It's normally celebrating a past premiership or something like that most years. And because the club makes money out of that function, they allow it to happen, and that's about the only thing that the Spirit of Carlton does now. Now, even those past players, have to pay to go to that function, same as anyone else. So, but that's the only reason it exists. So if we can make money, so the message is if we can make money out of you, we'll allow you to exist, regardless of any obligation that we really should have towards looking after you because of all of your past service to the club. No, that doesn't matter. If we can't make money out of you, nothing will happen.
Carlton had the best when the late Chris Pavler was alive. Carlton had the best past players of all clubs.
Yep, no doubt.
In the AFL/VFL,
no doubt.
It was the envy of everywhere.
Yep, and about the closest thing I can tell you that's just recently happened is, as you found out last week, is the life members function. A lot of those past players are life members because they're premiership players, or they've played at least 100 games for the club. But that's about the only other function now that's being organised outside of the club, because the committee that runs the life members is made up of people who have had a very close association with the club, like Sharon McCole and Shane O'Sullivan and Stephen Goff and Father Frank Brosnan. They're the 4 people that make up the committee. So they do a great job of getting all the life members together to come to this luncheon. And the only reason it happens is because this is not a club function. It's not actually a function that's run by the club. The club does foot the bill for it, in fairness, but they don't run the function. Thank goodness, because you've actually got Carlton people who have had a long association with the club running that function. That's why it's successful.
Yeah, and it's really sad when you look at all of this. Yes, it's happening in other clubs. It's the corporatisation of the AFL. Of course, we know that. It's still quite sad because it doesn't mean it justifies it happening. It's not right still.
Well, you just wish you could get some of these people that are making these decisions and grab them by the jumper and just say, "Don't you bloody realise what you're doing to this club of ours and to the game? They're corporatising everything. It's no longer, they're doing everything they can to lose that former common touch that we used to all experience back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. I think it's gone way too corporate in the last 20 years.
And that's what I was trying to say. That's actually what your asset is, your grassroots, is your history. And yet you almost don't want to use that at all. One good thing they do is, and they need to make more of a big deal of it, is they ring the bell. I like that before the games, and they'll interview a past champion.
Yes.
But it gets lost in all the music and hoo-ha and everything. It needs to be
the razzmatazz, the almost Americanized
Yeah.
pre-game hype.
Yeah, that needs to be almost earlier, and it needs to have its own space that supporters can hear the interview. That's my view. But at least they're doing something there on that side of things.
So you don't like the whole idea of getting the blue hovercraft or whatever it is, Blue Betty or whatever they used to call it, and have Navy Nina and Captain Carlton, doing burnouts all over Marvel Stadium and going from one side of the ground to the other.
I liked that at Princes Park because it was almost a little bit of we're doing something different. And this started around 2000, around 2099, around that period. We're Carlton, we're doing something different. So we've got a hovercraft. Most clubs have just got a mascot dressed up, walking around the boundary line, giving high fives to the kids. We've got a hovercraft and we're kicking footballs into the crowd. I don't know if you remember, Adam Gilchrist was at one of those functions at Princes Park. It was a good Carlton supporter he was. I'm trying to remember what happened, but he was actually, I think he kicked some footies into the crowd next to the hovercraft as well. But anyway, I digress. But that was a sort of it was a unique thing, that hovercraft.
Interesting. Well, all right. I think we've covered this topic to death. We'll wait and see at the end of round one whether the AFL gets its wish of over 400,000 people for the round.
And let's see the wagering turnover go through the roof on Wednesday night.
Yeah, well, that's another hot topic, isn't it? The whole issue of gambling in AFL and gambling in sport in general. But it's a hot topic, isn't it? I mean, how much exposure do you give all of this, and how much do you allow children to see all of this? And I just can't help but feel that they've been brought up on this stuff now. They all talk about it at school, and they talk about it amongst their mates, and clearly they are a target market for the betting companies that are pouring money into the AFL.
And the AFL can't wash their soul, cleanse their conscience, whatever you want to say, because they are direct recipients of a percentage of the turnover.
Correct.
So don't criticise horse racing or greyhounds or anything like that until you really look at the AFL, who essentially has that same model, don't they?
Yeah, it's a bit like Carlton players coming out talking about problem gambling when when we get so much from pokies revenue. Goodness me.
So when you look at that, and then you say, well, to me, is it important that crowds go to the footy? Well, you're always going to get people go to the footy, but are you going to get as many as you want? Probably not. But the off-field streams of income, the channels of income now are all about the sponsorship, the TV rights, gambling rights now are just continuing. So really, that's another stream that's almost can replace the crowd revenue. You can gamble on footy anywhere in Australia, so you don't need to go to the game.
Yeah, of course not.
So whereas if you're living in another state, it's a big effort to fly and watch a game. If you're a Carlton supporter and you're living in South Australia, WA, Sydney, wherever, that's a big effort, but you can bet on the game. So it's about getting more people involved in that to increase that revenue. And the AFL have got another stream of revenue. It's passive income, isn't it? There's no infrastructure required. It's in once 100,000, 101,000 are in the MCG, that's capacity. But if you've got your IT platform set up, you can just take as many bets as you want.
Let me ask you a question, hypothetical, because I certainly wouldn't want to, put it in anyone's mind that this sort of thing would really go on. But hypothetically, if you had a betting company, let's just call it, I don't know, Blues Bet, okay? And they're going to sponsor Carlton Football Club to the tune of $2 million a year as a major sponsor. How can we be sure that in return for that sponsorship, they're not going to try to get some value for their money, if you like, by insisting on at least one or more games being compromised in terms of the results? So it might be Carlton's red-hot favourites to beat, North Melbourne, and we're $1.20 to win or $1.15 to win, and North Melbourne's out to $10 to win, and all of a sudden Carlton's lost the unlosable game, or they. How do we know that the results are not being compromised by that sort of sponsorship? Is what I'm saying.
Look.
Because in my opinion, whether the result is manipulated or not, so in other words, whether it's a fixed game or a whatever terminology you want to use, okay, whether it's actually happening or not, the fact that a betting company is putting the money into the club, in my opinion, automatically gets, well, it certainly gets me, and I imagine it gets other people thinking, I wonder whether any of the results are compromised. And so therefore, you're already questioning the integrity, aren't you? You're questioning the integrity of results. You're questioning the integrity of the club because they're relying on revenue from a betting company who's inevitably going to want to have some sort of return on investment, if you know what I mean.
So, yeah, but I mean, yes and no. So I agree with what you're saying. The more gambling that's there, the AFL integrity unit, if you're talking about administrative growth, the AFL integrity unit should quadruple and triple its amount of staff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we've only just seen it recently with players from the Gold Coast got caught punting on a game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and these are the ones they catch, right? There'd be other ones that they didn't catch. So this is how normal it is in society almost as such. So your integrity unit's going to have to be super sharp. Players are going to obviously, to a certain point, nearly have to, disclose everything. And then it becomes about information. It becomes about advantage. It becomes about a player that's, everyone thinks is going to play and then pulls out at the last minute. All these sorts of things that can occur. Now, it may be perfectly legitimate, but as you say, the optics aren't good, are they?
And this is what I mean by the AFL getting into bed with betting companies. But I've got to tell you, it's happening in so many sports all around the world. Betting companies are involved in the sponsorship of snooker, for example, in the United Kingdom. I can tell you that there is absolutely mind-boggling amounts of money that are being wagered on snooker games. Now, do you know how easy it is for a snooker player to have an off night? It's not hard. It wouldn't be hard to do to just miss that black ball in the corner pocket. And these guys are so good at what they do. They can actually not only be brilliant at putting the ball in the pocket, but they can just as easily be brilliant at missing the ball by that much as well.
I think there's a bigger issue. Why is the AFL so insistent on being this corporate juggernaut?
Yep.
To the point where it has to continue to grow its revenue in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can't they just say, no, we got to cap, we're not touching this, and if we don't grow our revenue, so be it.
Well, all the clubs are moving in that direction, where they're saying, no, we don't want to be relying on pokies revenue and all that sort of thing. So why is the AFL still drunk on gambling revenue? What's that?
Not all the clubs, but a lot of them.
No, not all the clubs. There's still some clubs, of which we're supporters of that are still into it for about $3 million a year, aren't we?
That's profit, but it's about $19 million of turnover. But yeah,
$19 million of turnover for a $3 million profit. Not bad, is it?
No, it's all right if you can get it.
I wonder how soon we're going to move away from relying on that. Not anytime soon. But the question's been asked at every AGM since I can remember. When are we going to move away from relying on pokies revenue? And it's the same response every year. Oh, yeah, we're working on it. No, we're not. We'll be reliant on it for as long as all the people that control the Carlton board continue to control the Carlton board. And they like controlling the Carlton board, and they like being dependent. They like the club being dependent on them for its very survival.
They want the club. A shopping centre tenant once told me at a major shopping centre that the shopping centre wants your head just to be there above water. Yeah. You're drowning, but you can still breathe.
As a tenant, so long as you can still pay the rent. Yeah. That's right. And don't forget to keep opening those doors every day of the week, whether you're making money or not, because otherwise you're breaching the conditions of the shopping centre agreement. You have to open the doors. Did you know that? You have to open the doors whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're in breach of your lease or you're in breach of your, of your agreement, and they'll sue you.
Yeah.
So a lot of people actually open their doors in shopping centres, even though a lot of those hours they're not making any money. It's actually costing them money.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we're digressing. So let's get back to the whole club reliance and AFL reliance on betting companies.
Yeah, it's a major issue. So I think it's not good enough just to say we're not going to get revenue from poker machines. It's probably, I think it's actually worse what they're doing. So a poker machine player may not be a football supporter. That just might be their local venue they go to, and that venue is linked to the football club.
That's right.
Revenue, right?
Like the old one, like the place. Where is it in Laverton? We got a place in Laverton that I think old Brucey Convin used to have something to do with that, didn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, and Carlton derives the financial benefit out of that.
That had huge turnover, that place.
I'm sure it did. All of those people out there with massive incomes in Laverton and Hoppers Crossing and Werribee, they can afford to blow, $500 a day on that. So
that's one thing. But those people are probably already visiting these venues. But what the beauty of, if you want to look at this from a business point of view, forget the morality for a moment. The beauty of this online advertising and sponsorship is 4, 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids are now seeing that when they watch the footy.
That's the part of it I don't.
So that's a new market. So you talk about tobacco advertising stopping. The Benson and Hedges Test Series. In the 80s, right? Remember that?
Yes, I remember it well.
Or the Escort Cup at VFL Park in the pre-season, right?
And then it became the Sterling Cup.
So
it really wanted to make you smoke, didn't it?
Yeah. So those and rugby league had the Rothmans sponsorship as well, right? So that's fine. I mean, that's essentially, as you're appealing to the kids market. The betting is doing exactly this. The betting companies are doing the same thing. But not only are they using sponsorship, they've got product placement going on too. Now, product placement is powerful in marketing because, so when I mean product placement is, I'm talking, you may see an Apple computer in a movie or a TV series. So it suddenly associates credibility. Well, now you've got odds, you've got betting ads, but then you've got odds next to teams.
Yep.
Now, that's product placement in its best.
Absolutely.
So now kids are getting used to saying, who's going to win? Oh, we're $1.30 and they're $2.20 or something, right?
Correct.
And that's the way they're framing a market every time they talk about again, rather than look, I reckon we're a 4-goal better side than you because of this reason or that reason.
Yeah.
Now it's 130 to 220, or they're talking about the line.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So that's a way to get them while they're young, right? And the problem is you probably won't see the.
Well, you even
problems.
see it in the way they're marketing to young people with, for example, horse racing.
Yep.
It's all being targeted at young men who, want to dress up in U-Butte suits and impress the girls because the girls are going to be at the races and,
Yep.
Go along and be a hero and, bet on your favourite horse or whatever and cheer him over the line. And it's always the images of guys, with their hands in the air, you beauty, we won. There's never the image of the guy that's, trundling off home with not a cent in his pocket, not enough money to even catch a cab, no girl on his arm, his shirt's hanging out, his tie's all, been misplaced since about 3:30 in the afternoon. He's rolling drunk and he's got a fag hanging out of his mouth and he looks like a no-hoper.
Yeah,
that's not quite the image that they're projecting, is it? But that's exactly what they look like half the time when they leave the racetrack.
Absolutely. So look, this is a major problem, and it's it's not just AFL, but if AFL want to be purer than the driven snow with all their initiatives on so many other levels and use it to admonish their sins,
And by the way, they won't talk about that same guy who's lost all of his money betting on football, who then goes home and hits his girlfriend or his wife or whatever, because we're all holier than thou at the AFL about things like domestic violence against women and all the rest of it.
Sure.
But we're still not going to discourage people from gambling, which is half the cause of, well, not half the cause, but some of the cause of that sort of thing going on in society.
Oh, it puts huge pressure on relationships. It does create so many other issues, and alcohol advertising as well. And
there's another one, alcohol advertising. I mean, how many guys go home drunk and start hitting their partners?
Yeah,
and I shouldn't be sexist either. I reckon some girls go home and hit their partners too.
and look, I don't think. I'm not one for pure censorship, and everyone's got different views on these sorts of things. Ultimately, these things are up to the individual to make a decision. There's personal responsibility and so forth there. However, I'm not saying we don't have any gambling advertising, but where this is going is the levels that it's at and the strategic approach to it. You can't tell me that there's not a grander play going on behind the scenes of what they're really trying to do. And that's the disappointing thing when you then weigh that up with all the social initiatives that the AFL is supposed to stand for, yet these are completely compromising those, and they'd like to put those initiatives in a box and isolate them when it suits them.
Yes.
But when it doesn't suit them, they don't like to hear about it.
No, they don't. All right. Well, I think we've done that issue to death a little bit.
Yep.
Can I just bring up quickly the AFLW series? It's come to a conclusion. Carlton had a heartbreaking 1-point loss to Melbourne. It was a great performance, I thought, to stick with them for most of the match and really go toe for toe with them, head for head, toe for toe. Only failed by a point in the end. I'll tell you what, if we had got over the line there, it would have been 4 in a row. But in the end, we finished with 4 wins and 6 losses. And I thought they certainly did enough in those last 4 games for Daniel Harford to hold on to his job. But I guess that'll remain to be seen, won't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we went from a team that was going to make finals. I don't know how with the personnel that we didn't have.
I don't know why that sort of thing would have been hyped up. But anyway, they do it to us every year. Tell us that we're going to make the finals in the AFLW.
Well, they're consistent with men and women, though.
That's true.
The same. Yep. Okay, so So we've essentially, finished the season pretty well and missed the
Well,
finals.
we finished in
by-
eighth position.
Yep.
On 16 points. That's 4 wins, 6 losses with a percentage of 84.
Yeah, I looked at it. There's 20 goals essentially in percentage terms. We're behind the next team to make the 8, and 2 wins. So that's we did have some.
All the teams we lost
there.
to, all 6 losses were the top 6 teams.
Yeah.
All 6 of our losses were those top 6 teams.
So
Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, Kangaroos, Fremantle, Collingwood.
So if
the
you
4
put that
wins we had, the 4 wins we had were against Giants, Suns, the Cats, and St Kilda.
So if you put that in perspective, we've finished where we should finish.
Yeah.
We haven't underachieved.
No, we're in the middle of the road.
We overachieved.
But we're not good enough to make the finals.
Correct.
But the question is that just the problem associated with the senior coach and how he coaches and what the game plan is and all that sort of thing? Or is it more than that? What needs to change for Carlton to go up into the top 6 next year? What do you think?
Well, why were we in this position in the first place?
Yep.
I think needs to be asked, firstly.
Yep.
So I don't think we need to look at next year. We need to look at what is the strategy. I don't know if there is one.
Yep.
Had a lot of players leave.
Yep.
And just to say, the president was on I heard a radio interview with the president on there, and he, his PR team had obviously briefed him to talk about Carlton as a very young side in the AFLW, a young list.
Yep. So hang on. On one hand, 10 weeks ago, we're ready to make finals, or so they predicted. But now, 10 weeks later, we're just a young team that's just developing now, are we?
Yeah, that's what he said.
The narrative.
That's the narrative.
Righto. Okay. Yeah. It's nice to be able to change the narrative at your whim.
Yeah, unless we're a young team that we're going to make finals as well. But I don't know. I don't know if we're going to do that.
Well, we're going to be the baby Bluebirds or something.
Yeah.
Like the old baby Bombers of 1993.
Don't talk about that. Let's not talk about. Let's not go there. Yeah. So anyway, that was interesting to hear the president refer to the AFLW team as that. Why are we an inexperienced young side, and what were the issues? So I think if we don't look at those, we need to look backwards. We need to look at the reasons.
I'll say this much. The reason you could probably come to the conclusion that we're a young side is because we continue to lose a lot of our older and most experienced players to other teams, players such as Bree Davey, Katie Loynes, Alison Downey, Sarah Hosking, Jess Hosking, Taylor Harris. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I think the problem's got to be addressed at the culture side of things. Why is this happening? Why do girls want to leave our club at the end of every year? You can't tell me that it's just it's a competition-wide thing. It's happened more at our club than anyone else's, from what I can tell.
Yep.
And even the commentators talk about it. So what's going on behind the scenes at the women's program? It should have been reviewed, as we've said on this show before. It should have been reviewed at the same time as the men's program was reviewed. But if you really want to get down to the bottom of how we can improve, you've got to get down to the bottom of what's wrong and where it's coming from. And that's why I think that the women's program needs to be reviewed. So
if they didn't look at that, you're just going to have young players that you can. So let's say we believe the president's narrative. Let's say we are a young side. Forget the finals. We're a young side now, right?
Yeah.
So we're a young side, but we've still got the same issues that resulted in senior players leaving. And I don't mean senior players retiring to leave, going elsewhere and performing well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So they could have made a contribution had they stayed.
Yeah.
So if we're a young side and from that perspective, we'll develop our young players. And guess what will they do? They'll leave. And we're back to being a young side again. So if we don't address that root cause
that's right.
of what's going on culturally.
For example, Carlton supporters out there watching this, how would you feel if all of a sudden Maddie Prasparkas went and left to go to Essendon, which, by the way, she is an Essendon supporter originally as a kid. Essendon's coming into the competition next year. So all 4 teams that currently don't have a women's team now will have a women's team next year. So Essendon, Hawthorn, Sydney Swans and Port Adelaide. So they're the 4 that are going to come in. Now, what if Maddie Prasparkas leaves and goes to Essendon? What if Mimi Hill decides to go somewhere else? What if, Bree Moody, our ruck, what if she decides to leave? Where's that going to leave us? We're in trouble.
Absolutely.
If you lose those 3, you can forget it next year.
Yes.
We need to inject more experience into the team, I think, not just young people, because that's probably where we've gone backwards in the last couple of years. We've lost a lot of good experience.
And it's not just money either. Now, it was interesting to listen to some of Taylor Harris's comments against the feedback that Carlton had provided on, or the comments that Carlton had made on why she had left and everything like that. But can't just be money. There's got to be more to it, from what I see.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Steve, just while we're on that, I should mention that next week will be the first week of the finals. And it looks like North Melbourne, who ended up being placed 4th, will take on 5th place Fremantle in a home qualifying final at Arden Street on Saturday at 2:10. And on the same day, at about 4:10, I think it is, in Queensland, 3:10 Australian Eastern Daylight Time, will be the other qualifying final between the Brisbane Lions and Collingwood. So Adelaide and Melbourne finished on top. Those 2 teams will have a rest, and they will each play one of the winners. So I think you'll find that Adelaide will be playing the winner of North Melbourne and Fremantle, and that's the following week. And also Melbourne will end up playing the winner of Brisbane and Collingwood, and that will take place in Melbourne. Obviously, the Adelaide Crows will have their preliminary final in Adelaide. So they are clearly the top 6 teams in the competition. I think the ladder certainly reflected the best teams in the end.
I agree. It's going to be a good final series.
It will be.
And there's some really good teams. And if you look at the percentages on the ladder of those teams, some of them are nearly 200%.
Yeah, some of them are incredible, the percentages. Yeah. By the way, there's talk now that, in fact, when you hear the noises coming out of the AFL, it looks like the following season is not going to start till August. So I think they're realising that it's just too taxing on the women. And I must agree with this. That to play matches through January and February, it's just too hot and too taxing on their bodies and really testing their stamina. So they're now talking about starting the AFLW season in August and carrying games through the AFL Finals series. So when you've only got, for example, you might have week 1 of the finals where you've got that typical Thursday night game, then there's a Friday night game, and there's a couple of games on the Saturday. You'll probably find that on the Sunday they'll schedule AFLW games. And the same with the following week when it's semi-final week. And then the week after that again when it's preliminary final week for the men's, they can schedule these AFLW games on a Sunday. And then once the grand finals run and won, they can continue the AFLW season through October and culminate it in their final series in November.
That'll impact the VFL though, not the VFLW. I mean the VFL season itself.
Yes,
whatever the AFL, whatever that competition.
Not if they do curtain raises, Steve. Well, I mean seriously, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you hold the VFL's finals series as curtain raises to the AFL's games?
Agreed.
Where possible.
Yep.
I mean, if there's an AFL final in Perth, but there's no VFL teams obviously going to be in Perth, so you're going to have to play a VFL final somewhere else. But why not?
The AFL's strategy of VFL, which is a whole another conversation, is it is just a patch-up league that they've just treated teams like Port Melbourne, Coburg, Preston, traditional clubs like that, treated them with absolute contempt.
Yep.
And it's just
Williamstown, Port Melbourne,
all of them. It's really sad.
Preston, Coburg.
Really, really sad.
It is, but they also last year, if you remember, they added a whole heap of other teams and made it about a 20. Was it a 22-team competition or 24? I can't remember. There was teams like Aspley and Southport, I think, Southport Sharks or something, and there was all these teams from around the country. And I was thinking, what are they putting all these teams in a Victorian football league?
So they folded the.
They're not even in Victoria. They're in South Australia or they're in Queensland. And
so they folded the NEFL. They folded the that, and they essentially made the whole Eastern Seaboard play in a competition. But oh gee whiz, that's really sad. But
it's a basket case of a competition now, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, they destroyed it.
So what's the answer?
The answer is make it state-based.
Let's just say you're appointed the managing director of the VFL, Steve.
Yep.
Gillon McLaughlin rings you up and says, here's your $2 million a year to run the competition. What are you going to do to fix it?
No, state reserves, it's very simple. There's probably reasons why it can't happen, I'm sure, but state-based reserve sides where you will play, and the Crows do it in the Sandful. West Coast do it there in the Waffle.
WA.
Yep, absolutely. So you have a state-based side, and they will have top-up players that will be looking to impress from local leagues, and those clubs will have to hold those field those sides. Yes, it's not cheap, but it's something that you need to do. You need to have your players playing every week in a state-based competition. I think it's the solution. Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, I just like the whole idea of every Victorian-based AFL club having their own VFL team.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then if you've got room for there's 10 teams because we've got 10 teams in Victoria.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with asking every one of those 10 teams to put their own VFL team up? And then the teams in the VFL that are strong enough and financial enough to exist and to survive and hopefully thrive, let them stay in the competition as well. So you might have Port Melbourne, Williamstown, Sandringham, Coburg, Preston, Frankston. I don't know. I mean, some of these might have to fall by the wayside. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you give them the option. You want to join? This is what it's going to cost. If you can't do it financially and if you can't show us a business plan that proves that you can actually field a team and stay financial, well, then see you later. But that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see every one of the Victorian-based AFL clubs putting up their own VFL teams, along with maybe half a dozen of the traditional VFA teams, if you like. And that should be the competition. Whether that's 14 teams or 16 teams or 18 teams, that's fine. But that should be it.
And the advantage of those traditional clubs is they have supporter bases and traditional fundraising means and so forth. So they've still got a football club there behind them. Yeah. That they can, and a history of a football club as well.
Yeah.
And lots of people that love their local club. So I agree. That's what should happen. But the AFL are looking at it from an accountant's perspective, I think, not from a football perspective. But surprise, surprise there.
Yes, surprise, surprise again. Well, we'll look forward to seeing what they do with the VFL, because I've got to tell you, the last couple of years has been an absolute basket case. They even put a cease to the whole competition, I think, last year and the year before.
They did. Yep.
Both years. So we haven't even had a Victorian Football League premier since about 2019.
Yeah, it's not a focus for them.
Oh, well, that's sad. There's been a lot of fantastic people putting a lot of hard, blood, sweat and tears into the VFL scene over the years. All right. What else do you want to discuss this evening before we close off the show and talk about 5 minutes of golf before we finish up? There was a couple of other things you wanted to discuss, I believe.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the president on a lot of different media, whether it be radio, social media.
Yes.
It's refreshing to see the president speaking a lot through these channels. And these
what do you think's bringing this about? Because it wouldn't be coming from him. He's clearly being advised on this stuff. So what's the strategy here? There's got to be a reason why he's being trotted out for interviews with radio shows and podcasts and YouTube shows and all that sort of thing. Is it they're trying to reach a certain audience via social media and trotting out the president in a way that the previous president never did?
Yeah, well, let's be honest. They've got probably better material to work with now from a marketing perspective. I don't think it's any secret that the previous president was very uncomfortable speaking off the cuff.
Yep.
And probably from an interview perspective, wasn't comfortable. I think he could read a speech off speaking notes, but beyond that, I think that really public speaking or being able
wasn't his forte.
No. So now they've got somebody that they can roll out. My mail is that the club are contacting these programs, these channels, and offering the president up to speak.
I see. Right.
So you haven't had a call, have you, Vince?
Well, as a matter of fact, I have. I've been asked to go onto a show that I think the president was on last week.
But no,
this week they've got me going on.
No, I think you've misread my question.
Oh, sorry, I misread your question. Sorry, go on. Yeah, what are you referring to?
You misinterpreted. No, you haven't had a call offering the president up to this program.
No, I haven't had anyone from the club ring me and say, "Could we put the president on your show with Steve Khatib?" No, I think this would probably be one that they'll probably say, "Oh, we might just give this one a miss."
Yeah, I don't think it's.
But I did get a call to answer your question the way I thought your question was. There's a radio show in Perth called Breakfast with the Blues, and it's on every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Perth time. So at the moment, we're 3 hours behind them. So that means it goes to air at 11 o'clock in the morning in Melbourne. And when daylight saving comes to an end, that will go back to 10 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, it's on, for those of you who might be interested, it's 91.3 Sport FM. And
so you're going on that show?
Yeah, I'll be on this Saturday morning. Yep.
So
the same people that have interviewed Luke Sayers are going to be interviewing me.
So can I ask you?
Yeah.
I'll ask you this. My mail.
It's not exactly what I'd call a hard-hitting set of journalists or anything. They're going to ask hard questions, because I don't think they asked Luke Sayers any hard questions last week. That's for sure.
No, and that's where I'm going with this.
Right.
My mail is that they're offering up the president to these programs
on certain conditions.
Yeah. So then these individuals, up and coming media moguls, potentially they're looking to build their platform, build their shows.
Yes.
They think, the president,
wow,
club. Yeah, it really. So,
well, I've got to say to you that I've heard a few of these interviews, even on podcasts and YouTube shows, and the way some of these guys on these shows, and look, they've probably never ever spoken to a Carlton president in their life, and they're probably all weak at the knees at the prospect of, asking a question of the Carlton president. Wow. Some of them are just, how can I put it? It's almost like they're frothing at the mouth, or they're drooling like a dog that's just seen a nice piece of juicy T-bone steak. It's a bit humorous to me, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's where I
certainly haven't heard any of them ask anything that's been too testing of the president. That's for sure.
Well,
there's no Caroline Wilsons or Mike Sheehan's in there. That's for sure.
I've listened to quite a few of these, and my mail is that the questions that are asked get audited first. They're told to,
right.
They're told
to submit questions in advance. You think?
Yep, absolutely. That's my mail.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other information I hear is that they're told it has to be positive, and they're to speak to the questions that they're submitting in advance. Now, my question to you, Vince, is: are they submitting their questions in advance to you? This
no,
Breakfast with the Blues show?
No, I'm not that precious.
I can vet them for you if you want. I can look at them to see if they're in your best interests to answer or not. Would you like me to do that? I can scrutinise.
Not necessary. As I said to Chris Brownie, who runs that program over there in WA, I'm more than happy to take whatever questions any of you want to throw at me without notice. No preparation required. Ask what you like, and I'll give you the most straight, honest, answer that I can possibly give you.
Is this now Chinese state media? Really? I mean, is it really?
It's all. Yeah. Well, put it this way: what people should be aware of is that when you hear interviews like this of that nature with the president, and you've got all of these questions being asked, which are soft as butter, it's more than likely that the club has insisted on knowing what's going to be asked. They want to know the questions first. They will vet those questions. They will go back to them and say, no, you're not to ask that one. You're not to ask this one. These are okay. Plus, by the way, we'd like you to ask him this, and that as well. Example, can you please ask him about the Icon Park redevelopment? Because most of these shows don't care about it. But then when the interview is
they're all asking about it.
All of a sudden, all of them want to ask about the Icon Park development. So yes, it's all a bit contrived, isn't it?
Yeah, and I just think it's really important people know what they're listening to. That's all. Not once on any of these programs was the president asked about last year.
No.
Now,
correct. Because the club will censor it. They'll say, what's in it for us for Luke Sayers to talk about what happened last year? There's no positive outcome that can come as a result of it. So we don't want any questions about last year. That's one of the reasons they do an AGM in February instead of December, as we've already discussed. They don't want to dwell on last year. So, yeah, I mean, it's all going to be about the future. It's all going to be about how good is it now that we've got a new CEO and a new coach and everything's looking great and the team's on the park and they've had a great pre-season, best pre-season they've ever had. And it's all looking upwards, onwards and upwards. So, yeah, naturally they have to sell memberships.
The annoying thing is, though, okay, so all those shows are prescriptive, but then and I know we've discussed this ad nauseum in our previous weeks. At an AGM, because it's not in person, you are flat out getting your question heard.
And even if you get it heard, you've got to accept whatever the answer is, even if it doesn't even answer your question, and you're not entitled to a follow-up question because the first answer was unacceptable. You've just got to accept whatever way they decide to answer it, and that's it. That's the end of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it is. It's getting down to that level of censorship that you just can't believe anything anymore. You just can't take anything on face value and say that what I've just watched is all genuine and all, up front. Most of it's all pre-planned, pre-programmed, pre-vetted, pre-censored, all of the rest of it. So,
and
Chinese state media is not a bad way to describe it.
Yeah, well, Russia's got those laws too now with their media. But what it does is it almost pays off, if you like, these up-and-coming podcast or radio programs, because they're not going to say no to an interview with the president. But then,
of course they're not.
But then, is it
As
really
I said,
an
they're
interview?
all frothing at the mouth. They're all excited and pre-promoting it.
But is it really an interview?
No. Well, it looks like an interview, or sounds like an interview, but in reality, it's a
It's an advertorial. It's an advertorial.
Correct.
Yeah,
it's all
correct. So the club are really smart in reaching out to these people, these podcasts, up and coming radio shows and so forth, to offer them the president. Of course, they're going to say yes. Oh, what terms and conditions? Oh, okay, fair enough. We'll take those. And that'll lift their ratings up. And
gone are the days when John Elliott would just turn up to a radio station and say, yep, I'm happy to do an interview, throw me whatever you want. Because that's why, he never did that. But now we've got presidents, one after the other, the last couple, who are paranoid, would be the word I would use. Paranoid about being asked something that they can't answer or are going to look like, a rabbit in the headlights, can't answer the question, don't know the answer.
But Vince, it's more than that. They actually are not really connected to the football club.
Correct.
So they can't answer the questions.
That's right.
Even when tell me why you love Carlton, you can hit. You know this. You can speak to someone that you've never met about Carlton, and in 5 minutes, you know if they're a real supporter, not someone that's just got a team that's their team's Carlton and that's it. Because they'll be able to talk about where were you when in 1995 were you at the ground or what happened? Where were you when in 99 when we beat Essendon by a point? Where were all these?
Where were you when Helen D'Amico ran out and tried to
absolutely
tried to impress Bruce Dill?
You'll have some history. I'm not saying tragics like you and I that can remember every kick and mark and handball to a certain point, right? But you should have some idea of that. Now, when you hear some of these corporate types talk, it's very vague and general, and there's not a lot of detail, and you can pick it up straight away that you're a Johnny-come-lately Carlton supporter, really.
Well, anyway. Put it this way, the ultimate test would be put them in a room with a whole host of past Carlton champions and see how many of them they can name. Maybe that's one of the reasons Luke Sayers didn't go to the Life Members function last Sunday. He probably wouldn't have known any of them. But anyway, maybe apart from John Nichols, but that's about it.
Well, I don't think the PR department could prepare enough scripts for each player. No. But anyway, that's another story.
Anyway, that's another story. Interesting, though. Yes, so those of you who want to listen to me talk to them with no pre-prepared questions and no pre-prepared answers, 91.3 FM in WA. By the way, if you're not sure how to get the hold of that radio station, you can download the app called My Tuner Radio. Is that right? I think it is. Or My Tuner app. MY and then tuner as in TUNER, not TUNA, the fish. My Tuner Radio, I'm pretty sure it is. Anyway, if you look that up or search it on the App Store, I'm sure you'll get it. And then once you go into that, you just search for Sport FM 91.3 and they'll come up. So 8 o'clock WA time, 11 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time next Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. I look forward to that. And by the way, while I'm plugging, big shout out to Rocco and Paul and Marcelo, who are or Marcello, I should say, even though they call him Mars. All of the boys from the Jumper Punch. That's going to go to air on Tuesday night. That's tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. It's going to be a bumper first show. So for any of you who may not have been aware, 8 o'clock tomorrow night should be a big, big program. And tune in every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. There's plenty of fun on that show. It is really quite an entertaining program. I'm sure you tune in every Tuesday night, Steve, don't you?
I love the past players interviews.
There'll be plenty of those coming up this year.
And the history and just the general. You can tell that program. If you want a program that's not scripted, it's probably ours. But then if you want one that's definitely not scripted, it's definitely the Jumper Punch.
Well, when you say not scripted, yes, they have pre-prepared segments, but they just run it. And you know what? They don't know how long the show's going to go from start to finish when they start recording. They just say, well, when we finish, we finish. If it lasts an hour and a half, fine. If it lasts 3 hours, it lasts 3 hours. But most weeks it's somewhere around the 2 to 2.5. So every Tuesday night, great entertainment. There's no other football shows on TV, or even on Foxtel on a Tuesday night, I believe. So what better way to spend your Tuesday night than tuning into the Jumper Punch on YouTube and tuning in to see Rocco, Mars and Paul. All right. Stephen, it's almost an hour and a half in. Let's just very briefly touch on the tournament over there in Florida, which is known as the Players' Championship, or what some people refer to as the fifth major, the unofficial major tournament. We thought we were going to have a winner by this time last week, because we thought, well, Monday night, we're going to know who the winner is, but the weather has played havoc over there.
Look, it is... I've actually been to this course, so I can tell you from first-hand experience.
I'm very, very jealous. Have you had a shot at the 17th? Have you actually had a shot at the 17th green?
No, the day we were there, we got to play the other course. There's 2 courses there.
Yes, this is the stadium course.
Yeah, unfortunately, this other course was being renovated, so, you know, under work. So we couldn't play there. Anyway, we did look at it, and it's just 120 metres. You know, it's nothing special except when there's millions of dollars on the line and there's water and wind and everything. But anyway.
Well, there's the balls that went in the water yesterday from the best players in the world.
Yeah.
With a howling wind. They were hitting 6 and 7 irons that would normally go 170, 180 metres. And they were hitting the ball and it was falling short of a 130-metre pin. And going in the water. So it must have been a howling wind. There must be a lot of luck involved on that.
The problem is if you hit a 6 or 7 iron and you hit it too well and it goes sort of under the wind a little bit, you're over the back.
It goes over the back.
Yeah.
It goes over the back.
That's right. So it's a very hard shot to time.
There's some of the best players in the world have just been so red-faced. And even their recovery shot, which they take from the drop zone, a lot of those have been going in the water as well.
Yes. No, that's a hard shot. That's a very hard shot because they're in between club there, so they're not comfortable of how far it's going to go. Oh, yeah.
Terrible.
So the beautiful thing about this course is
it was a fantastically challenging second round, though, wasn't it? I mean, the second round was incredibly tough, and I know the first round was pretty tough too. But geez, that second round brought them all back to the field, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the conditions were just. Yeah. I'd never seen more difficult conditions on that course before, but the beautiful thing about that course is the drainage.
Yes, the course has held up amazingly well considering how much water they've had. They've had inches of water on that course.
Yeah, it just drains away so well. It's obviously right on the beach there, so it's in Jacksonville, so it is sort of conducive to that. And
while we're mentioning Jacksonville, one of the local residents these days of Jacksonville happens to be a young guy from Australia called Cameron Smith, who lives just up the road from that course. And Cameron, of course, as if you'll remember, won that tournament in Hawaii earlier this year on 34 under par. That was never ever been carded a score like that in the history of the PGA Tour. So he scored the lowest ever 4-round total of 34 under par to win that tournament. He is now up in the top 10 in this tournament, but at 6 under. and still about only halfway through his third round. So they're going to finish the third round early tomorrow morning and then finish the full round after that.
They'll have to then tee off. Final round. They'll have the miners hats on, literally with the lamps on, tee off. And then they'll just be going straight into half an hour break or whatever.
So
and
they'll have 3 players per group. They'll be doing some players off the 10th tee to start, some off the first.
Yeah.
And getting through that third round as quickly as possible. And then again, depending on
what the
leaderboard's like, they'll all tee off after that.
He'll have to play 26 holes tomorrow. And it's, heavy. It's the conditions are so hard that every shot you have to think about that extra bit, because it's not just a standard shot, it's the wind and everything that you have to negotiate. So anyway, that being said, 6 under par is equivalent of 20-something under par in the conditions that he's had it when he's played so well earlier in the season. That is literally how hard that course is playing. I would say that he's every chance to win this.
Well, I believe out of the 40, I think he's played 46 holes so far. So he's played the first 2 rounds, which is 36 holes, and then I think he's played 10 holes into the third round. Out of the 46 holes, Cameron Smith has had, I think, over 20, I think it was something like 22 of those holes, 1 putt.
Yeah,
that's huge, isn't it? I mean, that's to be a good putter is just so important.
You're not going to hit. You're not going to hit all those greens in regulation in these conditions. No. So it's about missing the green in the right spot, being able to chip close, and then hold that putt. And they're tricky greens too. You talk about tough greens.
Oh, it's a tough course, but I'll tell you what. Any of you who really sort of are listening to Steve and I thinking, why are these 2 guys so enthusiastic about golf? You've got to watch a tournament like this. It's just amazing. The course outline, the challenges that are asked of these players on every single hole, whether it's a driver. I saw, Adam Scott ended up missing the cut at 4 over because the cut was 2 over, I think, after the players who achieved 2 over or better made the cut. Those who scored 3 over or worse missed the cut. Adam Scott was cut at 4 over, and there was 1 hole in the first round. In the very first round, he was going along really nicely. I think he was about 1 under after 8 holes, including the 17th hole, because I think he teed off on the 10th. So he did the 17th. He did that one in par. That was fine. Gets to the 18th hole. What does he do? Not 1, but 2 balls. Hits them in the water.
Yeah.
Cost him 4 shots. They're the 4 shots that probably were the difference between him making the cut and not making the cut.
Yeah, well, it becomes also psychological, doesn't it? The water
and after that, he seemed to also just lose confidence and then starts hitting another 3 or 4 birdies. And I think he ended up with 6 over by the end of the round, which is a bit of a shame. It was never really going to make the cut after posting 6 over. But good to see also, apart from Cam Smith, young Lucas Herbert made the cut. And he's hovering around even par at the moment.
Yeah. Good effort.
These conditions really suit Lucas Herbert because he loves it when it's windy.
Well,
and it's
that was
cold,
Bermuda where he won.
There's a lot of weather around. He thrives on that.
Absolutely.
As we saw him do at Bermuda late last year. But look, certainly I don't think Lucas Herbert's close enough. Mind you, they've still got another round and a half to go. So lots of things can happen. I mean, there's not that much distance between the leaders and those who just made the cut. There's only about 10 or 11 shots.
Yeah, things can change, but it's
There's an Indian chap at the moment who's something like 322 in the world who's leading by 1 shot, and he's in the same group as Cameron Smith and Joaquin Niemann from Chile, and I think his name is Lahindra. That's his surname.
Yes, that's Lahindra. Yeah.
And he's playing so well, isn't he, for someone who's ranked 322 in the world? But can he keep that 1-shot lead going? And with another, round and a half to go, there's still a lot of golf to be played, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who do you predict to win?
Look, because there's literally a round and a half left, it's pretty hard. But I would say that if anyone can do it, it's Cameron Smith. Definitely. I'd love to see that happen.
I'll tell you one thing: those American commentators are so biased towards their Americans. It's not funny. I mean, they froth at the mouth at Jordan Spieth, and he keeps missing cut after cut lately. And now it's Justin Thomas. He's the flavour of the month. They talk about him like he's God at the moment, like he's the next Tiger Woods. And don't get me wrong, Justin Thomas is a great player. He actually won the tournament last year, so he's the defending champion. Yeah. And he did play a brilliant round in that second round. I think it was only him and Bubba Watson who had bogey-free rounds. I think they were the only two.
Yeah.
And they were superb. In those conditions, they were superb rounds. But my goodness, they are so biased, it's not funny. Anyway, we wait and see that. And look, I'm really hoping that Cameron Smith can fight it out and take it out. It'd be a fantastic victory for Australia if he did.
It would be. No, the fifth major. It would. I'm not saying, not suggesting his career needs a platform to go through because he's already done some great things. But to win that fifth major,
we've got to say that mullet of his, it's gone beyond being a mullet now.
Yeah.
What is it now? It's gone beyond being rat's tails or a mullet. It's an amazing set of locks he's got now. They're hanging down halfway down his back these days.
Yeah, it's amazing.
At what point does he say give it a trim?
Look, there'll probably be some charity or something that he does it for.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It suits him, don't get me wrong. He keeps reminding me of Craig Bradley from the 80s, but anyway.
Kicking that goal against West Coast 95 to the Lygon Street end.
Yes, the 1994. You mean the 1994 Carlton?
Sorry, 94.
Yes, don't get it wrong.
Sorry.
What a great goal it was along the boundary line.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me.
Now, I'm going to very quickly finish up the show with one last thing for a bit of fun. The AFL this week put out this article, Crystal Ball, our predictions for the 2022 AFL season are in. And they asked all of their esteemed journos like Damien Barrett and Riley Beveridge and Sarah Black, Nat Edwards, who else? Josh Gabalick, people like this. They asked them the same questions and asked for their predictions. So I'm going to ask the same questions of you. So you ready? Questions all without notice. So you see this?
Can I vet these questions first? Can my media team do that? Or no? Okay.
No, your name's not Luke Sayers. Sorry. Okay, your tip for the Premier. Who's going to win the Premiership this year?
Brisbane.
Okay, can I ask you why?
I think Danaher's going to have a good year. I think that they will improve. They'll win more games at home than what they did last year. That'll set them up, and they're hard to beat on the road as well. And I think that
helps having a young guy called Cameron Rayner coming back into your team.
Rayner's coming back as well. Absolutely. I think they've learned a lot from their exits in finals as well. I don't think there's any issues with age on their list or anything like that. So I think from that perspective, their home ground advantage will be significant to set them up.
Okay. Well, my prediction is Melbourne.
No,
I'm going to say when it rains, it pours. To me, what they did last year was brilliant. And I think the motivation to do it again is strong. And this time to do it in front of their home fans at the MCG will be just as strong as well. So there's some added fuel to the fire in their belly. Runner-up, who do you think? So you say Brisbane. Who do you see is going to be runner-up?
It's hard to say. You're talking final series and all of this now, but I'd definitely say Melbourne will be up there, so I'm going to put Melbourne in there.
So you think Brisbane will beat Melbourne at the MCG on the last Saturday in September? That's effectively what you've just told me, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is what I've told you, yeah. It is.
Okay. Well, I'm putting the runner-up as Brisbane. So there you go.
Are you sure you're not copying me?
No, I'm not copying you.
Yeah, okay.
Wooden spoon. Who's your prediction for the wooden spoon?
This is going to be difficult. Everyone will say Hawthorn or North Melbourne, possibly, right? But I actually think those two teams will win a few games. I don't think they're as bad as what people think.
Yep.
Gee whiz, this is a difficult one. Can I park that and come back to it?
Oh, come on. Just give us a quick prediction. Is it a Victorian team or an interstate team?
I'll have to go with Hawthorn then. I mean,
Hawthorn.
I'm going to have to go. I'm going to look. It's too difficult to pick. I think they're not going to be. I don't think the wooden spoon's going to be like 3 wins. I think there'll be maybe 6 or 7 wins there.
6 or 7 wins for a wooden spooner. Wow.
6 wins. Yeah, I reckon there'll be about 6 wins.
Okay. My prediction for the wooden spoon: West Coast Eagles.
No, I think you're wrong there. You're too easy to.
I just think that they're ready to have the backside fall out of that team. Their best players are all getting way too old and frail and injury prone, and I just think that there's a lot of things that are wrong in that team at the moment. So will they win? I mean, don't get me wrong, Josh Kennedy's been a fantastic player for a long time, but I think you're still relying on a 34, nearly 35-year-old to kick your goals. No.
Will they win 6 games, or are you thinking that they're going to be a real wooden spooner?
I think they're going to struggle to win games. I just think that they're going to struggle to win games of football. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe I will be wrong. Maybe they'll make the 8. I don't know, but that's my assessment of it. I just think that they're looking like a tired football club or a football team and a tired list. Yes, they've got a couple of young players like every club. You can point to Oscar Allen and all of that as
he's injured though. From Josh Kennedy. He's got question marks on.
They've got injury concerns all over the place in that team, and I just don't know that they're going to stand up over a full season. Anyway, moving up. Who's the team you're going to see as moving up more than any other up the ladder?
Richmond.
So last year, for example, the biggest mover was Melbourne, going from 9th to premiers. Who would have predicted that?
I reckon Richmond will be top 4. So if they were,
so they finished 12th last year. So you think that they're the biggest mover?
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Interesting. My big mover is Carlton. I actually think we'll move up the ladder significantly. I don't see us finishing 13th like last year. I see us finishing 6th or 7th.
Okay.
So that's a fairly significant move, isn't it? 13th to 6th, 7 spots. Who's set to fall? Who's going to make a big plunge down the ladder?
Well, I know your answer is West Coast, because obviously what were they, 9th or 10th? Were they 9th?
No, they were 9th, I think. They finished just outside the 8. Yep.
Yeah. So if they were 9th, you're picking a spoon. I would say that's your one, but I'm not answering your question. I'm answering my own question.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Look, I think
normally when you're saying someone's set to fall, it's usually someone that's or a team that's in the 8 or was in the 8 last year. Yeah. That's going to fall out.
I'd say GWS. Yeah, GWS.
Why GWS?
They overachieved to get where they were. Right. I think it flattered them. I think they, what was it, 11 wins? I think they had to finish 7th, 11 and a half wins. Was it 11 and a half?
Yeah, and then they beat Sydney in the first final. They ended up playing Geelong in a semi-final.
But you look at their form line; it was pretty ordinary throughout the whole season. It was very up and down.
So I almost did what Carlton did in 2013. Just made the finals a little bit.
Yeah, won the first week. Yeah.
And then won the first week, and then fell out the second week.
Yeah, so I'd say I think GWS for mine.
Okay. Brownlow medal. Who's going to win the Brownlow?
It's difficult. You can't say Sam Walsh now unless he miraculously comes back.
You never know. He might come back in round 3 and he'll only miss 2 weeks. They won't play him. They won't play him in the first round or the second round, I don't think.
No, they won't. Brownlow medal. I mean, that's a really hard question.
Have a shot at the dartboard. Go on. Think of the best players at each club, and
Petrarca probably. Let's go Petrarca. Yeah,
Petrarca. Okay.
It's easy. That's an easy one to pick though. But yeah,
that is fairly easy to pick. I'm going for Petrarca as well. Funnily enough, you took the words out of my mouth. I think he's outstanding, that young man. Coleman medal. Who's going to win the Coleman?
So I would have said Harry Mackay if we didn't have a better midfield, which we do have now. Yep. So in the way we played last year, I would have said Harry for sure. But our approach has changed. The kick it long to
sharing it around a bit more.
Well, so you should. I mean, we weren't
too
sharing
reliant on Harry.
Well, we were relying on him. It wasn't that we had other options. So
no. Coleman medal. Who are the big goal kickers in the competition? I'm just looking at some of these other ones. Nearly every journalist here has gone for Jeremy Cameron from Geelong, the former GWS player.
Yeah, but he's not the number one banana there.
Nat Edwards went for Harry Mackay. Jeremy Cameron. Geez, 4 or 5 of them have gone for Jeremy Cameron again. Every one of them has gone for Jeremy Cameron except for Nat Edwards. Oh, here's another one. Aaron Norton from the Western Bulldogs. I can't see him kicking more goals than anyone else.
Look. If my prediction for Brisbane is right, Joe Danaher's going to have a big one, and he'll probably be he'll have to be. But we're talking a Coleman medalist now that kicks 50 or 60 goals and wins it, right? We're not talking about a Coleman medalist kicking 100 goals and the crowd jumps over the fence, right? Correct. That doesn't happen anymore.
No, that's correct.
So I'll go for Danaher.
You go for Danaher. All right.
Definitely not Jeremy Cameron.
What's that?
Definitely not Jeremy Cameron. I can't understand how they could come up with that.
Well, okay. I actually think Harry Mackay will still kick more goals than anyone else. There you go.
Okay.
So I think he'll win again.
Even with that game plan changing. All right.
Righto.
Hope you're right.
Rising Star. Who's going to win the Rising Star?
I think Raul's still eligible for Gold Coast, and with a full season under his belt, as long as he doesn't get injured again, I think Matty Raul for sure.
So he's still eligible. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, because he got injured in round 4. Was it last year? Round 4 or 3, around that time?
Yeah. I think Nick Dacos from Collingwood.
Yeah.
I mean, probably no surprise there, but from all reports, he's going to be an absolute gun. Recruit of the year. Now, this can be a recycled player who's changed clubs, or could be a totally new recruit, or a draftee, or a rookie, or anyone you want it to be. Who's going to be the recruit of the year? For example, Damien Barrett thinks it'll be Robbie Tarrant, who went from North Melbourne to Richmond.
Yeah. Oh. Gee, that's yeah. If he's not injured, possibly, he could play a role.
I won't hold you to these, you know.
Thank you. Give me some of the others.
Tyson Stengel, Hugh Greenwood. I think, Robbie Tarrant's got a couple of people here thinking it'll be him, and there's a couple of journalists that have gone for a Carlton player. In fact, some of them have gone for 2 different Carlton players.
So Chera's
one. But more than Chera. Oh, no. Chera's got 2 now. Yeah, I'm just looking through them. George Hewitt.
Big call.
So some people think it'll be George Hewitt. It'll be interesting to see whether that's the case. I actually think it'll be Chera. I think Adam Chera will end up being the recruit of the year. I think he's showing signs already that he's going to really fit in beautifully into that midfield. Something about that number 5 on his back just looks like it's meant for him. And Of course, as we know, everyone looks better in navy blue.
And without spoiling your thunder, I think that's the right call there. But what they're not saying is what you paid for someone versus the recruit.
Of course.
So if you're Robbie Tarrant,
you've had to give up pick 6 to
yes,
get Chera, and then once Chera's over, you've got to pay him $700 plus. Yeah, you'd want
of course
to
he's going to be
investment.
You'd hope he was recruit of the year, basically. For that reason, right?
Absolutely, you would.
So whereas if you look at Robbie Tarrant, twilight
probably went for peanuts.
Absolutely, twilight of his career, playing a role in the defence at Richmond to assist Grimes and so forth. Well, then you'd say for peanuts is actually probably as good, if not better, recruit because it cost you nothing.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway,
so there you go.
Yep.
Now, think of the All-Australian team. Who's going to be the surprise All-Australian who makes it into the team at the end of the year? Come on.
Gee whiz. Surprise All-Australian.
I'm getting some of these journos are talking about players like Tom Sparrow from Melbourne. I can't see that happening. Taron Thomas from North. That'll be interesting.
I'll say Nick Larkey from North. I reckon he's
Nick Larkey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he shows a lot of promise, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dion Prestia. I mean, you could throw in just about anybody as a surprise.
Prestia was injured last year, so I mean, is that really a fair call to say?
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly right. I mean, he's an All-Australian normally, close enough to the squad.
Yeah. Look, you could say anything. I reckon I saw a practice match with Brisbane the other day, and I think young Zach Bailey really presents as a potential All-Australian. If he can keep that sort of form going as a small forward, he's a very damaging player.
He was great. Yeah.
So Zach Bailey from Brisbane for me as the surprise All-Australian. Next one, we'll try and wrap this up as quickly as possible. A headline that you will see through 2022, Stephen. Give me a headline that we're guaranteed to see. And by the way, the question after that will be the headline you won't see.
Oh, gee whiz, Vince.
Headline that you'll see.
Pass, you go. Give me a few minutes to think about it. I don't think you're going to ask me all these questions.
Oh, dear. Headline that I think you will see at some stage during 2022.
Yeah.
Clarkson to coach new Tasmanian AFL team.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
That's what I think will probably happen.
Yeah.
A headline that you won't see in 2022. Carlton President Luke Sayers calls for external review of football department in the month of June. What do you reckon? I'm pretty confident you won't see that headline this year.
Well, if he didn't review it properly the first time, regardless of how poorly we go.
I'll tell you another headline you won't see in 2022. Right? And this is on the assumption that Carlton missed the finals. Carlton president and his board resign saying that they need to be made accountable for Carlton's non-performance.
Over so many decades, yeah. Yeah, good luck there.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a bit of fun. Okay. 3 more questions. When will Buddy kick his 1,000th goal? He's got 5 to go. Does he kick it in round 1? And if so, when in round 1? During the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, or final quarter? Or right on the final siren or something?
Last quarter, final quarter.
Final quarter.
Yeah.
Okay. I tend
And
to agree with you. I think it'll
they'll
happen in round one. They'll get it out the way as quickly as
yeah, and
possible.
they'll feed him the ball.
They'll
a bit,
feed him for the
like
whole
Joe
game.
the Goose handball or something over the back.
All
and,
of that, yeah.
yeah.
How did that saying come about, the Joe the Goose?
I don't know. Poor
What is
Joe.
that meant to be? Is that like Joe the Goose meant to be loose? The loose handball?
Nah, it's.
Or what's Joe the Goose meant to be replacing?
Good question, and someone can probably answer that on.
I've always wondered how they come up with that one.
I think you're a goose. You're not very good, and you're sitting in the goal square. And even Joe the Goose could kick the goal. I don't know.
Yes, you're probably right. All right. Second last question. Who should headline the grand final entertainment this year? Come on, what musical acts or singers or bands are going to headline the grand final entertainment? Obviously, Meatloaf. Unfortunately, God rest his soul, won't be there.
So, depending on the international travel and all of that sort of thing, they'll still go with an Australian group. So that's one thing.
Which one?
Gee,
well, who would you like it to be? Who would you like it to be, Stephen? Come on.
I think I'd like it to be Mike Brady and all of that.
Oh, you're a Mike Brady fan.
Yeah.
You don't think at 74, 75 years of age he might have stretched his voice a bit too far over the years?
No.
Okay. So let's do the Up There Kazali thing one more time.
Yep, absolutely.
Crowds are back at the football. It'll be 45 years since that song got released in 1977.
I wouldn't mind a bit of Greg Champion as well in there.
Yes, Greg Champion. I loved that song back in 1995. The Thing About Football, that was the best. Yep. That was our grand final. That was our premiership year. That's when that song got released.
Yeah.
Well, my headline act for grand final entertainment, who I'd like to see, the Australian act, Kylie Minogue. I'd love to see Kylie. How good would that be?
She's living in Australia now, so.
Oh, Gina Harris. Hi, Gina. She likes Coldplay. That's a good suggestion too.
Yeah.
That would be tremendous to get them. But I'm a big Kylie fan. I think she's the best musical export this country has ever produced.
So she should roll out the old favourites as well?
Yeah, why not?
I Should Be So Lucky and all of those ones?
Why not? Do all of the ones that get people up and dancing and singing and cheering and all of that. I'm sure she could put a good collection of songs together.
What are they all saying? What are the people saying in the AFL media?
Come
on.
Def Leppard and John Stevens and, please. Dua Lipa. She's a popular act. Gang of Youths, whoever that is. Taylor Swift. Vance Joy. Never heard of him. Crowded House. That'd be good. Crowded House would be good.
Yeah.
Or the old Split Ends. The two Finn brothers.
Yep.
Neil Finn and Tim Finn.
Yeah.
Who else? Foo Fighters. These are some of the suggestions. Oh, look, one of them suggested Kylie Minogue. Callum Toomey suggested Kylie Minogue. Didn't even know that he suggested that. There you go. Someone thinks like me. Bernard Fanning. Anyway, who knows and who really cares? The grand final entertainment's never been all that flash. I think the best one of all was Olivia Newton-John in 1986 because she was a Carlton supporter, and what a shame that we didn't win the grand final that day.
The thing is, and this is for another show, why they want a night grand final, or at very least a very late twilight start grand final, is that whole entertainment and the lights and the.
Of course, and I agree with that. I agree. I actually thought that the whole twilight grand final last year in Perth worked an absolute treat. I loved it, and I think we should embrace it because there is a lot more. There's a lot more available to you if you're putting on a show like that with the nighttime and the transition from day to night. I think Twilight's the perfect
Yeah, if
times
I reckon
for a grand
4:30.
final.
Yeah.
4:30 start.
You still have the barbecues and all of that. Yep.
Yeah,
Anyway.
you can still do all of that during the daytime, and the game can start in the daylight. But half time, you've got that beautiful window where it goes from twilight into night, and then the lights are on in earnest, and then the second half can all be done under lights. Last is the big call. So what's your big call for 2022? Example, I'll give you some examples. Damien Barrett said, Dusty to become Clarko's first signing at the Gold Coast, and De Goey will be his second. Callum Toomey predicts that the exact NAB AFL draft order in its entirety is his phantom one. This is a little bit stupid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone else said, Jason Horne-Francis will take Mark of the Year in his first season. No pressure. There you go. That'll be my big call. Tom DeConning to take the Mark of the Year. From what I saw of that practice match, this kid's got a huge leap on him.
Oh, he's just got to hold him.
There's my big call. Tom DeConning to win Mark of the Year. What about yours?
Goal. It'd probably be goal of the year. It would have to be. Are we talking a Carlton player here, or?
Yeah, why not? Might as well be.
Yeah, look, I think Harry will kick goal of the year. It'll be some
Snap
athleticism,
around his body or something.
Well, yeah, you know how he does all the second effort.
Snapshot, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's good at it, and he's also good at the evasion and athleticism. So I think he'll use some of that to kick goal of the year.
Yep. All right, that's about it, my friend. I think we're going to wrap it up for another week. We've gone a couple of hours. I think that's more than enough. Thanks for staying up and watching us. If you're still out there watching, thanks for your contributions during the show. And Steve, thank you to you, as usual, for your valuable time and your insights into the world of AFL football and specifically the Carlton Footy Club. Let's hope that the boys can put on their best performance in a decade and finally knock over the Tigers in round one, because we have not won a round one game or a round two game for that matter for 10 years. It was 2012 when Brett Ratton was still coaching us, which was the last time we beat Richmond in round one, and I'm pretty sure we went on and beat Brisbane in round two. So
correct.
It all starts with this week. I think the belief in the players will be amazingly charged if we can knock over Richmond this week. I think we can actually do it this time. I think we've got the side to do it. Richmond, everyone's predicting a big resurgence. I'm not convinced. I think they've lost a lot of good players since their premiership years, and I still respect them tremendously. Don't get me wrong, but I do believe that they'll struggle to make the 8 this year. What do you think? Do you like Carlton to win or not?
I think Richmond will win. I think Carlton will certainly run them probably deep into the last quarter, though. So I think it'll be very competitive till the very end. But I just think they've just probably got that bit of experience, too much class there. That doesn't mean we're having a bad year.
No. Don't you agree with me, though, that it's vitally important that we get off to a good start? Because
Absolutely.
If you lose that game, that belief system just gets compromised straight away in the players.
Agree. Yep.
And then if they lose to the Bulldogs, who were, grand finalists last year, they're not going to be any easy beats. If you lose to them in round two, then already you're back to 0-2 again, like every other year. So I just think it's vitally, vitally important that we get over Richmond this week. Yep. All right, everyone. Let's hope it's a great game either way, and let's hope that the Blues can finally manage to win in round one in season 2022. Until next Sunday night at 8 o'clock, when Steve and I get together again to discuss all things Carlton and AFL. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday night.
And don't forget Vince on the radio show next Saturday at 11 a.m.
I think if you haven't taken down the details of that yet, you're probably not interested. All right, okay. 91.3 FM over in WA, Sport FM. And the interview will be on at 11 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time and 8 o'clock WA time. Okay, I think that's the third time I've said it, Steve. So, yes, I'll look forward to that. So until next Sunday night at 8 o'clock, bye for now. And as we always say, go Blues.
Go the Baggers.